Common motherfucking sense, aka the soul of Andromeda, the night of Venus. And you ever wonder what's more important? What more truly represents you? Your sun, your moon, or your rising sign? Now, for those of you who are not fully aware of astrology and the mechanics of the way it works, you probably think all that matters, or doesn't matter, is your sun sign. Chances are the only thing you know about are the sun signs. Because that's the only thing people focus on, you know what I'm saying? And especially when it comes to people who don't really know anything about astrology, or they only scratch the surface level of it. That's why you get so many people say, oh, astrology isn't real, or how can this be real? I'm not this sign, or I'm not these traits, or how many Leos are like this? I'm a Leo and I don't feel like this, or blah, 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 blah. And it's all because they only know a small portion of how astrology works. The sun sign, your actions, the way the world sees you, your vitality, your ego. These are all the things that the sun represents in the birth chart, or in just astrology in general. But again, this is only one aspect. For those of you who are a little more aware of astrology, you know that all of the planets in the solar system have a specific significance to them. So now you have to go deeper. The moon and the rising sign. You know, the sun, the moon, and the rising are what all the other planets are filtered through. Getting to the moon. The moon is all about your emotions, that which makes you most comfortable. You know, they have this saying here in America, home is where the heart is. This is talking about that moon energy, that fourth house energy in the birth chart, that Cancer energy. The moon, Cancer, the fourth house, all talks about things of creature comforts, that which makes you feel most relaxed, that which makes you feel most comfortable to be you, to feel like yourself, to kick back and do whatever the fuck you want to do, however the fuck you want to do, whenever the fuck you want to do, just like you was at home. And not have to answer to any authority, not have to answer to anyone else's opinions and shit like that. You set the standards for what's comfortable. You set the standards to what you want to connect to. These are the moon. These are the symbols, the significance of the moon. You get what I'm saying? Now we get into the rising sign, the personality. The personality comes from this other word, persona. Persona means mask, the mask that you wear. We all know that when we present ourselves to society, no matter what room or no matter how it may be, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be at work, whether it be out with friends at a social event, no matter what it is, when we present ourselves in society, we're wearing a mask. No matter how true you are to yourself, no matter how unapologetic you are, you're wearing a mask. See, the thing is that there's the you that you show to the world. There's the you that you show to your loved ones and your close ones. And then there's the you that only you see behind closed doors. These are all, again, representations to the fact that you wear a mask every time you present yourself. This mask, this persona, is all wrapped up in the personality. This is the first house. This is the rising sign. So again, that leads us to the very question of which one is more important. Which one most truly represents who you are on a core level? Your sun, your moon, or your rising? Well, honestly, that is a misleading question. That question is a lie in and of itself, because there is no one aspect. There is no one alignment. There is no one sign that represents you. As a matter of fact, you're a sum total of all the signs and planets in your birth chart. As a matter of fact, you are all the signs, Aries through Pisces. You have a first house all the way to the 12th house. You have that in your birth chart. You know what I'm saying? When you was born, these planets and these signs didn't just fucking disappear. They were still there. So you still have these energies in your chart. You still have these energies in your energy. The only thing is, how do you represent them? How do you best manipulate these energies? You know what I'm saying? Because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We just use them differently. Some people are making videos right now. Other people are watching videos right now. Other people are reading books, etc., etc., etc. It's all about how you're using these energies. But we all doing the same shit, technically, when you get down to the nitty gritty. But yeah, that's just letting you know that you have all the signs in your chart. So knowing that fact, how do you represent yourself with these signs? Which signs, which planets, which alignments do you cling more on to represent yourself? What part of you that's in your birth chart do you use the most, not only to express yourself, but also to understand the world around you? Now, again, I said all of the planets, all the signs end up getting filtered through your sun, moon, and rising, your big three. And that's what people start talking about in the astrology circles. That's what people start talking about in astrology circles. You know, like what's your big three? You know, what's your big three? And if you wanted to talk about your big three and you want to get down to what's most important about your big three, a lot of astrologers would say the moon is the most important. But I don't subscribe to that. Not one bit. I don't believe anything that a lot of astrologers nowadays say. But one of the main things that I don't believe in is that the moon most truly represents who you are. And here's why. First of all, your moon represents, again, your emotions, the things that make you feel comfortable, the things that you connect to, the things that you are constantly focused on, mentally speaking, things that your mind are constantly focused on, your mindset. And it's not like Mercury. Mercury is more so like your thinking patterns. You know, it's like the way you express yourself, the way you communicate, the way you choose words and put them into sentences. That's more of a mercurial aspect. That's the thinking nature of Mercury. But more so towards the moon, the thinking nature is the things that you think about on a constant day-to-day basis. The things that you constantly think about in order to gain some sense of comfort or stability or, shelter. internally speaking. The things that you use to do that are your emotions. Your emotions are like a guide, pointing you in a direction of where you want to go and don't want to go. Your emotions are constantly telling you yes or no, what you do fuck with or what you don't fuck with. You know, constantly giving you a check or a zero with a cancel. You know, it's constantly approval or disapproval. It's constantly telling you a direction. The thing about that is, you use these things in order to move forward. You use these things in order to bring your reality here to this reality. You use these things in order to understand this reality, but you are not these things. You are not your emotions. You are not the way you feel. You are not the things that you connect to. Yet these are the things that the moon represents. So tell me, if the moon represents your emotions, how can that also represent the truest you? Your emotions are changing every day. Matter of fact, what has more influence? You or your emotions? Do you have influence over your emotions, or do your emotions have more influence over you? And that's a tricky question. That's why things like meditation is so important. That's a different video. The point is, though, is that you can gain control over your emotions. And the way that you do that is by sitting back and understanding your emotions from a bird's eye perspective. Take yourself out of your emotions while they're still happening, while you're still feeling them. In other words, you have the full potential. As a matter of fact, not just the potential, you're doing this every day. You are constantly observing your emotions. You understand? You are the observer of your emotions. So if that's the case, how can the observer be the thing that's being observed? You cannot be under the microscope as well as looking through it at the same time. That's impossible. And sure, anything's possible, but you give me an argument against that. You get what I'm saying? You are not your emotions. You are not the way you feel. You are not the things that you connect to. You are not the things that make you feel most comfortable. You are not these things. So therefore, you are not your emotions. So that argument is debunked. Another argument for the moon being the most closest representation of who you are is because the moon is the closest celestial body in space. You know, the moon is the closest figure in us, towards us, compared to the sun, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and all the other planets and asteroids out there. So because the moon is closest to us, it has the greater impact, the greater energetic influence on us. So therefore, that's the closest to us. That's the other argument that a lot of astrologers will say. And I got more arguments against that. The thing about that is that only suggests the distance. You know what I'm saying? And just because the distance is closest to us doesn't mean it's more us. It's like, for example, if I hold a mirror to your face and I point it to your face close like this versus I point it all the way out like this, it's still a fucking mirror. The moment I push it closer to your face doesn't mean it's more you. I mean, sure, you can start getting into the details and really see more of your face in that mirror, you can really start to truly understand who you are when you get closer to that mirror. But it's still a mirror. It's not you. It's just a reflection, which again is what the moon represents. So that argument gets debunked. But even more so, the moon is another thing about the moon. It's constantly changing signs. It's a fast moving celestial body. So what's this mean? Well, whenever a celestial body moves faster than other celestial bodies, and the reason I'm saying celestial bodies is because the moon is not a planet, so I don't want to just call it that, but celestial bodies, right? Whenever a celestial body is moving faster than others, that oftentimes in astrology means it has more energy on us on an individual level. The slower a planet moves, the less energy it has on us on an individual level. And it starts to become more generational. It starts to become more of a societal energy instead of just a personal energy. You get what I'm saying? That's why, because Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, because they move so slow, they can take up to 10, 15 years to change signs. That makes it more of a generational planet, a generational energy, So now it's not just you who's expressing this energy of Aries because you was born on this day. Everyone who was born in the past 15 years experiencing this Aries energy. You get what I'm saying? So the faster a planet moves, the more it's individual, the more it's personal to you. Now the moon moves damn near the fastest. Mercury moves the fastest, but the moon moves even faster than Mercury. Mercury moves, if I'm not mistaken, let me check. Mercury changes signs every 2 weeks, but the moon changes signs every 2 days. You know what I'm saying? So Mercury, even though it's damn near one of the fastest, the moon is faster. So the moon being like one of the fastest celestial bodies, that makes it one of the most personal planets in astrology. And because it's the most personal planet in astrology, that's another one of the reasons why so many astrologers say the moon is most symbolic of who you are on a core level. But let's take the rising sign into account. Now see, the rising sign is tricky because the rising sign isn't an actual celestial body. But more so, it's the group of stars that was rising in the sky at the time you was born. Now, the thing about that is think about what you do. This is completely off the wall. But think about what you do when you're like very upset or very happy. Chances are you look up, very frustrated, or some shit, or you're very happy, or whatever the case may be, you start looking up, or you're feeling dreamy, or whatever the case may be. How often do you look up when you're in some deep emotional state? Why do you think you do that? Where does this come from? Well, let's just put this thought out there. Well, if I was to say the reason you're looking up in these deep emotional states is because you are trying to reconnect with that energy on a subconscious level. That energy of who you most naturally are. That energy of where the stars were rising at the time you were born. That energy of what makes you feel like you're coming home or you've just left home, if that makes sense. That's just a thought to throw out there for those of you who might can catch it and grasp it. But I got more. Your ascendant changes every 2 hours. The rising sign changes every 2 hours. The stars that are rising, because they're constantly, compared to our perspective, they're fixed. It's us that's rotating, but compared to our perspective, they're constantly doing this, right? They're constantly changing throughout the 24-hour time period. So knowing that the rising sign changes every 2 hours. The moon changes every 2 days. The sun changes every 31 days. Which one do you think is most personal? Which one do you think is... I'm laughing because the answer is in the fucking question. But you got astrologers out here telling you it's the fucking moon and shit, right? Which one do you think is most personal? Most personal to you? You get what I'm saying? Let me tell you something too. What's personal to you also represents the house of what's personal to you. The first house. The first house is all things that are personal. Again, your personality, your persona, the mask that you wear. And another thing about this mask that you wear is this mask cannot be taken off. This mask, which represents your body. You will never be able to fully take yourself out of this body. You get what I'm saying? And you will never be truly an observer of your body. Sure, thanks to mirrors, like my example before, or thanks to technology of today, like cameras and shit like that we can observe our bodies and shit like that, but never for real though, never actually, never in the way that other people really can. See, we need tools. We need to manipulate the physical world in order to observe our body. But we can always observe our actions. It's nothing to observe our actions, whether it be in the moment or past tense or future tense. Before we even take those actions, we can always observe our actions or our emotions. We can constantly observe our emotions, whether it be from our perspective or from other people's perspectives. But we can constantly observe our emotions. So how can we be these things? We're just the observer of these things. What we can never do is observe this mask that we wear. Sure, we can do some analysis get into psychology, psychoanalysis, get into the personality types and all this other shit. Sure, I mean, thanks to astrology, we can start to learn more about ourselves. Sure, we can do shadow work and etc. etc. Sure, but you can never truly observe yourself outside of yourself. You get what I'm saying? This mask that cannot be taken off, aka the rising sign, all represents that. So if the moon changes every 2 days, the sun changes every 30 days, and the rising sign changes every 2 hours, that should tell us right there that the rising sign is most personal. And because of that, that should let you know that that is most closely representative to who you are. But let's say for some reason you're one of those people who feel like they don't resonate with their rising sign for whatever reason. That's where it starts to get more nuanced. Now you have to see where the ruler of your rising sign is in your birth chart. And for those of you who don't even know what that means, every sign is ruled by a particular planet. Let's say your sign is Aquarius. Then that means let's say your rising sign is Aquarius. Then that means the ruler of your first house, the lord of your first house, is Saturn, because Saturn rules Aquarius. You also have Uranus, which is a co-ruler of Aquarius. So you can go and check and see where Saturn and Uranus is in your birth chart. And if Saturn is in Taurus, that might show examples of why you might feel less of an Aquarius. And you might feel more Taurus-like. And it may not be Taurus, it may just be earthy. You know, if your Uranus is in Aries, then you might see that you have more of a Taurian Aries type energy about you, less of an Aquarian type energy about you. And that's because the ruler of your first house is in these signs. You get what I'm saying? And it gets even more nuanced to that too. You know, it starts getting into things like angles and what's aspecting your first house and what's aspecting the planets that's in your first house, if you have planets in your first house, etc., etc. But all that's to say, you know, that's to bring depth to this argument that the moon is most representative to who you are. That's bullshit. It's the rising sign. It's the rising sign. It's the rising sign that's most representative to who you are, because the rising sign not only represents your body, but think about how rare it is to actually catch someone with the same exact rising sign, the same exact degrees, on top of having the same sun or moon sign. You get what I'm saying? There's plenty of people that got the same sun and moon sign. You know what I'm saying? I'm a sun sign Aries, sun sign Aries, moon sign Taurus. You know who else is? Pharrell Williams, Making Happy. I'm not out here making fucking happy and shit like that. I mean, I do dabble in music, you know what I'm saying? But you get what I'm trying to say though. Like, the difference in our life doesn't just stop at the sun and moon sign. And sure, we can get into the degrees and such, having different degrees. But once we start looking at the rising sign is what sets the stage for the rest of your chart. So once that is set down to the degree, it's fundamentally going to change everything else about the way your nature is going to be nurtured, if you understand what I'm saying. Now this stage The course of events that's set up for you is going to be set in a completely different way when it's in this sign in this degree versus in this sign in this degree when it comes to your rising sign. You know what I'm saying? That's why the rising sign is so important in astrology. And when you're doing readings and you're looking at tarot readers and shit like that, I hope you're looking at your rising signs, not your sun sign or not just your sun and moon signs. Because your rising sign, again, is the sign that sets the stage for your whole life, for your whole birth chart. You use this mask, you use your personality to get yourself through your whole life. There's no other way to look about it. You know what I'm saying? So start to understand it from a more logical aspect. Your rising sign is the closest to you. It's the most personal, celestial planet, celestial, whatever the fuck. I don't even know what to call the rising sign. It's the most personal symbol. It's the most personal energy in your chart. So take this knowledge and use it, apply it. You understand? Don't just dive so deeply into just the moon and the sun. Start to learn more about your mask and value your perspective.